Welcome. You're listening to John Hyman from Commercial Real Estate Online. This is one of the many training videos that we put out to help agents and brokers around the world with the specialities and the activities of commercial property. And this particular video is all about staying ahead in commercial property management. Indeed, that segment of the industry is quite challenging when it comes to staying on top of the right things, the performance factors of a commercial property. And when you look at the background of this particular image, you'll see quite a number of properties, some of which I have had something to do with over the years. And I know that the leasing and property management activities in these buildings is quite complex and does require specialist processes. In fact, if you were a manager or a leasing expert looking after these particular buildings, you'd need a team of people to work with you and help you. So this video is all about staying ahead in commercial property management. It's a short video. It'll give you an idea or a few ideas relating to what to look for and how to maintain the focus on the asset for the landlords that you serve. Now, if you haven't visited us before, please do so. The website is commercial-realestate-training.com. So now let's have a look at the topic itself. Now, property management in this particular case, and for the purposes of this video, will involve office buildings, industrial sites, and also retail buildings. Now, industrial property management is relatively easy. However, office property management and also retail can be regarded as complex and detailed because you've got a number of tenants usually in the same building, a number of leases to look for. You have multiple streams of income coming in for the asset, and they all need to be managed well. So the bigger things to look for, the things to maintain and control, are the following. First, we have the leases. Then we have the tenants in the building. Of course, you need to understand the landlords that you serve. And then there will be some vacancies in the property to look after, and also property maintenance activities. There will be some rental payment issues to watch for, critical dates in the leases and also with the tenancy mix. And then there'll be a reporting requirement to work with the landlords so you can update them on what's happening within the asset. And every property needs to comply with the building code, so there'll be compliance issues and risk issues related to the asset. And lastly, income and expenditure. So let's go back to the beginning here and look at some of these issues. And these are the bigger things. Perhaps in your asset you can add other things to this list, but these are the main ones that you'll come across. So I'll just pick a few of these, and that'll give you a good idea of how you can stay ahead in commercial property management. Ideally, to keep yourself out of trouble when it comes to property performance, and also looking at the forward aspects of property control and asset performance. So let's go to number one, the leases. Now, when you look at the leases, there will be different rent types to consider, and those rent types will be driven from the lease document itself. So there'll be effective rents. They are the rents that come from the lease with no incentives. However, if you have some incentives in the lease, then a face rent will be created. Then, of course, you'll get some rentals which are gross rentals, and they are all-inclusive rentals, taking into account the net rent and the outgoings recovery for that particular property or premises. Now, you will also get some net rents where the outgoings are recovered separately from the tenant. And all of these things, depending on the rental types, will be reflected in the terms and conditions of the lease. That does say that you should read every lease when it comes to managing or leasing a property, so you can understand what particular terms and conditions apply throughout the year with that tenant and with that landlord. So that's the leases side of it. Let's have a look at tenants. Now, tenants come and go from a property. Of course, tenants are locked into some form of lease or occupancy document for a period of time. And you need to understand the duration of that lease, the terms and conditions of that lease, and how you can support the tenants as part of occupancy, taking into account the conditions of the lease. Now, some of those tenants will require expansion and contraction. They might want less space, more space. They might have a redundancy issue with the property or the premises. They may need to relocate. So understand the requirements of those tenants when it comes to actually expanding and contracting within that property. So let's go back one stage here. You'll have some anchor tenants. They are the large, big tenants, and certainly you'll come across anchor tenants in retail properties. And then you'll have specialty tenants. And specialty tenants, the smaller tenants, and particularly in retail property, They are the merchandise tenants, the people that sell things, and of course there'll be clusters of those throughout the building. And in retail property, you have to understand the clusters as they apply to property performance. Get the clusters right, and you improve the overall customer interest in the property. So let's go back here a bit more, and that was the tenant side of it. Now let's look at the landlord side of it. With landlords, they will be interested in cash flow, and of course that is rental. The rental will come in through a number of different income streams, be it base rent, turnover rent, there'll be rent reviews to consider, things like that. And then there'll be investment issues relating to the landlord. How long do they want to own that property? And of course, what are their expectations when it comes to property performance? Now they will have a portfolio potentially across a number of different buildings, so you need to understand what that portfolio is and how those landlords will expect you to bring in the rent and achieve the net income for them as part of the management strategy. That directly follows through to the types of reports that you will create for the landlords on a weekly and monthly and quarterly basis. So the landlord strategies, requirements and reports are really important. So let's go further into this and let's look at the vacancy factors. Every property will have some form of vacancy from time to time, and of course if you've got a large property like one of the buildings in the background here, you will find that there's issues to monitor. I've just put a few of them here. Now there'll be current vacancies to resolve and find tenants for. Then there'll be market conditions, and within the market conditions there'll be vacancy rates to watch for, and your building ideally should have a low vacancy factor, but if there are lots of other premises vacant in the same marketplace, then that will be a challenge for you when it comes to leasing the premises. Now renewals come up with tenants, and in some cases you'll want to renew the lease with sitting tenants, particularly if they are good tenants for the property. And any upcoming vacancies, maybe at the end of a lease, should be monitored and administered. So if you know that a tenant is coming to the end of the lease next year, then you should work on the renewal right now, or get a new lease in place right now if possible. Certainly if you want a vacancy though, you might be going through some renovation or refurbishment activity or redevelopment, then maybe you do need a few vacancies to do that work. Now I'll just cover one more topic here in this particular part one of this property management video, and I'll cover the property maintenance side of it. In property maintenance, you should have budgets established for the property at the beginning of the financial year. Those budgets will track the expenditure side of the cash flow, and there'll be capital expenditure separately itemised so that the capital items, the larger capital items for that asset, will be outside of the normal expenditure, mainly because they're handled differently when it comes to taxation. As part of the property maintenance aspects of the building, get to know the contractors in the building, because they can help you when it comes to understanding what's going on out there and how the building's performing, and also the plant and equipment that you may have to work with as part of the expenditure for the building. Now, some maintenance will be planned, some maintenance will be unplanned. So the differences there will have an impact on the budgets. As part of establishing the budget, you would normally consider the planned maintenance, be it to the air conditioning plant or the lift plant, whatever's required there, and then you would set that budget for the year and then make an allowance for unplanned maintenance that could come along. So that's up to item number 5. We'll cover the other 5 topics in the next video. So these are the bigger things that you need to consider in staying ahead in commercial property management. And as I said before, the website for us is commercial-realestate-training.com. And if you haven't visited that website before, you can certainly do so, and you'll get plenty of tips, tools and ideas at that website. Indeed, here's the website now, and you can see that this morning we loaded a podcast relative to certain skills and ideas and tips in commercial real estate agency. So that is the recording here now. Thanks for listening, and we'll get back into part 2 of this particular program shortly, and we'll cover the other items in the list, which is rental payments, critical dates, reports, compliances and income and expenditure. So my name is John Hyman. Thanks for listening to this recording today, and we'll catch you again very soon